this is the outline of my presentation today, and I first just would like to acknowledge that everything you're going to see is really the combined effort of the direction of our board, who has provided some great leadership and had to make some really tough decisions over the years to keep pushing the agency and the valley towards sustainability. Our staff is relatively small at about 13, and we all work well together and use some consulting support to help us get through some of the efforts. I'm going to talk to you briefly about our basin monitoring activities after providing a little bit of background information, talk about some of the hydrologic monitoring and basin management planning. And it's not just going to be all science, but it's really going to be sort of our approach to doing some of this stuff as well. So here's where we're located, not too far from here. This is the Pajaro River watershed, and the black line here represents the statutory boundary of the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency, which I should point out is not exactly the same boundary as DWR's Bulletin 118, Pajaro Valley Basin. And so there's work ongoing there. We have a request in for a basin boundary modification to try to move the boundaries a little bit to help enhance the existing management within the area. The history of the valley in brief, really, we go back to 1953 with the release of Bulletin 5 that first documented seawater intrusion into this valley. This report also shows in 1947 that we had groundwater contours, groundwater surface elevations below sea level. But then those elevations rebounded after rains in the early 50s. Flashing forward to 1984, the agency was formed really by an effort of local stakeholders, in part to be a mechanism to bring water in from the Central Valley Project. The first Basin Management Plan was developed in 1993, and also in that year we started metering private agricultural production wells. That was controversial at the time, but has proven to provide essential data to the work that we're doing now, and at this point it's pretty much commonplace. We've developed and revised our Basin Management Plan, and our first water supply facility became operational in 2002. And as we move into color, we have the recycled water facility that was constructed in 2009. That's been a great resource throughout the drought. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. The agency has had 3 hydrologic models since it was formed. Most currently, we partnered with USGS in 2005 to do an extensive overhaul and build a new model using the, at the time, MODFLOW 2005 code. It's since been moved over to MODFLOW-OWHM, which is the One Water Hydrologic Model. And shortly after that effort, we had to go through a Prop 218 rate setting effort, which was successful at the time and gave the agency a 5-year period to develop a new basin management plan, an update to the existing one, and kind of keep the agency moving forward. Because prior to that, due to a lawsuit, our rate structure had been compromised, and so there was a 5-year sort of trial basis as whether the agency could regroup and move forward or if it would be discontinued. And that was adopted by the board in 2014. And then in 2015, just last year, we did another rates effort which kicks into gear the implementation of the first phase of projects, which I'll describe in a little bit. Our agency is governed by a 7-member board of directors. 3 are appointed. 2 of the 3 that are appointed by the farm bureaus, and 1 is appointed by the city of Watsonville, which is the major city within the valley's area. And then you can see 4 are elected, and those are the names that show up on the map here. Our revenues, roughly around $13 million a year. We've had some additional revenue as a result of the drought, and so we've had some carryover funds, and those have been mostly going to build capital projects. You can see 42% this past fiscal year has gone to capital project. Most of our revenue comes from the augmentation charge, which is a fee on groundwater production based on those meters that I talked about earlier. This slide shows the varying rates of the existing augmentation charge, and the Prop 218 effort that occurred in 2015 set a rate schedule for 5 years through 2020, and that's what's shown here where the rates will be. And so this is a charge about $200, and right now it's about $200 for pumping an acre-foot of groundwater. And then if you are buying our delivered water service, then that's about $350 an acre-foot. This map shows how the rates break down, where anyone in the purple is within our delivered water service area, and anyone outside of the area here, and these are the different towns, pays the outside delivered water zone fee. So the state of our basin now, we rely heavily on basin monitoring activities to inform all decision-making practices. The monitoring feeds directly into the model, tells us how we're doing with respect to our water supply facilities and so forth. So we look into surface water, groundwater, all of our delivered water supplies, and we also do annual land use monitoring, which is really looking at changing crop types. Climate variability is an issue that everyone in the state has to deal with. If we had the same amount of rainfall every year, it'd be a lot easier to do planning. You know, you have the El Nino years, which really stand out, bring an awful lot of rainfall. And then the drought years, which we get significantly decreased rainfall. Well, the rainfall directly impacts how much water is flowing through our major rivers and our streams, which provide recharge to the basin as a whole. The use of the basin is predominantly agricultural based, and on a per acre basis, the revenues for the crops are probably some of the highest anywhere in the country, if not the world. We grow a lot of high value crops in the valley. In this map, all the green areas are vegetables. The red areas are strawberries. There's blackberries and raspberries in the warmer part of the basin. And there's still a lot of apple orchards in the northwest quadrant. So you can see the breakdown, and we've seen a change through time. The valley used to be predominantly apples around pre-World War II, and then the shift to higher water use but also higher yield crops has caused increased stresses on the groundwater basin. This is in part because nearly all of the water used in the valley is groundwater, about 98% roughly. And so the remaining 2% either come from surface water. The city has a pre-1914 take on Corralitos Creek, and then our recycled water facility and managed aquifer recharge project. Because we have meters on the wells, we're able to pretty accurately track total extractions valley-wide. And when I say pretty, the one group that we do estimate are the rural residential wells. We estimate those based on studies of looking at different rural residential water uses within the valley. And so you can see here we average roughly 55,000 acre-feet per year. This is going back over the last 15 years. The dark blue lines here, the bottom part of the column, mostly represents agricultural water use. And then the lighter blue on top is domestic or household city water use. And then the purple on top of that is the agency's supplemental water supply facilities, which I'll get into. The green bars on the top are rainfall, and I'll note that for the calendar year 2013, we only had 3.5 inches of rainfall in the valley. And you can see that directly drove up water use. But then through outreach efforts and through activities, the agency has a conservation program. We've partnered with a lot of other agencies to improve irrigation efficiency practices, or at least offer technical assistance to ways to do that. You can see that water use has declined each of the last 3 years in the valley, which is a good sign. Most of the water is being pumped out of an aquifer that we call the aromas, which are these two orange shaded aquifers here. And they're divided in our model as an upper and lower, but they're based on these cross sections, and they're about 800 feet thick and made up of sands. They're very, very good for producing water. However, when we look at water levels in a series of wells, in this graph, each one of these bars is one individual well, with 131 being looked at between 2011 and 2015 in the spring. Almost every well saw a net decrease in water levels through that time. And the average, or the median change in water level, is approaching 6 feet. So we use this slide a lot when we talk to members of the public, because it's hard to envision what the groundwater basin is like. But when we show on a slide of, say, Lake Mead, and you can see the bathtub rings, you know, kind of relay the two together, that we are drawing down our groundwater basin. And then we show pictures of what a hydrograph might look like. In this case, it's a well going back to about 1999, and you can see the impact of the most recent drought and the cyclic season of winter, summer, but the net decrease in water levels. But it's not all gloom. At the coastal area, where we are delivering our water through the water supply facilities and reducing groundwater production, we did see water levels come up right around the time that water deliveries commenced in this county in 2009. So that's some proof, we think, that our facilities are working. But the overall state of the basin has water levels below sea level most of the year, extending all the way back to the San Andreas Fault. So this is about 10 miles. This hatched area is the demarcation of seawater intrusion, as noted by a chloride concentration equal to or greater than 100 parts per million. And the different shades of red here show how the water level that's below sea level expanded between 2011 and 2013. And, you know, the water levels are about anywhere from 10 to 20 feet below sea level. So we're not talking hundreds of feet, but just being below sea level or even equal to sea level can still draw in seawater intrusion. As part of our salt and nutrient management planning, we've looked at water quality throughout the basin, and this image shows total dissolved solids, and as you would expect, it's highest along the coast and also in some of our recharge areas where the river comes into the valley. And so we are inheriting salty water from upstream in the watershed. And then we also have looked at nitrates. So our existing facilities, because we've been doing this, the agency, as I said, was formed in '84, so we're on our 32nd year now. We do have existing infrastructure in place that's working, and this purple area again is the delivered water service area, and when there's about 20 miles of pipeline that's delivering water from several different facilities that include a diversion off of a stream and putting that into a recharge basin, which I'll show in the next slide. And then we store the water in the subsurface temporarily and recover the water and set it into our distribution system. The recycled water facility, I changed the description from drought-proof to drought-tolerant because the city has been doing such a good job at conserving that inflows have dropped from over 6 million gallons a day to about 4.5 million gallons a day, thereby reducing our available recycled water capacity. And then the distribution system to move the water around. This is a picture of our recharge basin full, and this is the coast right here in this image. Our diversion point is shown in this yellow circle, and we pipe the water to this recharge basin. This is an ancient sand dune. The water percolates into the ground. The wells pull it up later. Climate variability has affected this project. This is our network of wells. Production wells are shown in blue. Pretty much all the other wells are monitoring wells. And this is what it looks like when we divert water. This bar at the top is the water level in the pond. And every time it goes up, you see groundwater levels go up in the shallow aquifer, although this is the regional aquifer, and you don't really see the effect, you know. So this is all percolating in and on top of a clay layer that separates the shallow aquifer from the regional aquifer below. Although for a few years, really around 2013 when the drought came into effect, and even in 2012 where we had this sort of strange brackish water inflow event from the bay, we weren't able to operate the diversion project. And the net result there was that water levels in all the shallow wells started going down. And so this cartoon kind of illustrates what's happening underneath the basin. We were successful in operating the facility this year, and you'll see that the operation of the facility is not just for water supply, but it also has a significant impact on water quality. And this is just an image of nitrate concentration in this area. And when the project is operating, nitrates tend to be very low. And then right around the time we had a partial operation season here, a partial diversion, and then we had to turn the project off because the water quality in the slough wasn't sufficient for diversion. So you can see the improvement, and then we didn't run the diversion for a couple years in a row, and nitrates went very high. But now, and this is not even the most current data, nitrates are down below 20 as a result of percolating about 950 acre-feet this year. And then that is just one source of water to all of the sources of water in our distribution system. The purple line here is the recycled water, and this orange line is the average of the water quality in our distribution system as a whole. So the chlorides tend to be about 102 parts delivered at the turnouts. Nitrate tends to be about 35 to 40, total dissolved solids around 600. This is an image of our water recycling facility. Again, not drought-proof, but drought-tolerant. All of these facilities work to reduce coastal groundwater production. Our most current model and the earlier models all suggested that the most efficient way to stop seawater intrusion is to reduce or eventually eliminate groundwater production in the coastal area. And so what you're seeing in this graph are the purple bars are the delivered water supply, which has been trending up, and then the dark blue bar is the groundwater in that delivered water service area, which has been trending down. And next year or the year after, those lines will crisscross and we'll be, we're well on our way. The We've also had some grant funding to kind of fill in some donut holes, this yellow pipeline. We just celebrated it turning on yesterday. So we're moving forward with more capital projects to have the capacity to spread water around. What we really need now is more water to put into our pipeline. And that's where some of the future projects come into play. So in total, we've delivered through last year about 30,000 acre-feet, or almost 10 billion gallons of water. So in moving into planning for future projects and being wary both of climate change in the long term and climate variability in the short term, we have developed the hydrologic model with the USGS, and we use the model to look at the 30-year forward-looking projection. And the model told us that with all of our existing infrastructure in place, we still have a shortfall of about 12,000 acre-feet per year. And the model also shows, this red line here separates the past versus the predicted future, that we're still having seawater intrusion occur. But the existing water supply facilities are greatly reducing the amount of seawater intrusion that we had prior to those facilities. So we developed a plan. We pulled together stakeholders representing a diverse group of folks within the valley, and they represented some of our board members, the cities, the counties, agriculture, small water districts, large water districts, and so forth. And they worked together to figure out what our solution would be to achieve a way to meet that 12,100 acre-feet. And conservation is the single biggest part of that pie at about 41%. And then the remaining comes from either new water supply facilities to construct or optimizing the existing ones, being able to get as much water out of them as the engineer said we could when they designed it. And so running a little short on time, I'll kind of skip through this slide here. This just shows how our committee rated the projects, which ultimately they use this annualized costs per yield in terms of dollars per acre foot. And the single biggest project here is this inland pipeline from a college lake to the basin. The modeling shows that with the implementation of these projects, we should see a 2 to 3 foot increase in water levels in the delivered water service area and a 1 to 2 foot increase to the north and a smaller increase in the backside of the basin. But this would be enough of an increase to stop seawater intrusion, as the model shows in this slide right here. This is existing conditions, and this is after the projects are implemented. So wrapping up, we've got phase 1 through 2025, and the data collection programs have been really important. You know, at lunch they talked about the recharge net metering program, so I'll just say a 10-second blurb on that, which is, you know, our board was really pleased with this idea to move forward with this type of project. It has the benefit of bringing more, diversifying the recharge portfolio and getting more landowners involved. They can feel personally connected to helping to recharge the basin and receive a rebate from the agency for their efforts. So with that, I'll stop. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Brian, I would like to know how does works this process of water recharge with farmers? For me, it's very interesting. This kind of ecosystem services.
Certainly. So this is a 5-year pilot program, and officially it starts October 1st of this year. But the way it will work is that there's basically a few different groups. There's the landowner, there's the agency that's issuing the rebate, the landowner who's going to build the recharge basin on their site, and then there's this other group which is kind of a combination of the University of California at Santa Cruz and Andy Fisher, and then also the Resource Conservation District of Santa Cruz. And they are together, what they're calling themselves is a third-party certifier. So the growers are required as part of the ag order to keep water on their land to the extent possible, but that would be called incidental recharge. And through enhanced recharge, through construction-related activities that can enlarge a basin where water is being captured and allow for additional or enhanced recharge to take place, the university and the RCD will instrument the basin once it's constructed, and then they will quantify the volume of enhanced recharge that's entered into the ground as a result of these activities. And then They will report back to the agency on an annual basis about how many acre feet went in, and we have just a simple formula, which is the rebate is equal to essentially enhanced recharge times 50% of the augmentation charge. So because we're charging growers and homeowners to pump water out of the ground, and as I said earlier, for growers in the outside area, it's about $200 an acre foot. They could get a recharge of about $100 an acre foot for every acre foot of enhanced recharged. And the goal is to get about 10 of these projects in place, or really it's 1,000 to 1,200 acre feet per year. And the fact that they're just capturing rainfall runoff, water quality will be looked at closely, water levels will be looked at closely. We'll try to figure out where the water's going on within the basin. And because it's a 5-year pilot, the agency is committed to it for that 5-year period, and then we'll evaluate to see how well it's working and adjust the program as necessary after that time. Thank you.